Hi, my name's Shannon Wydra. I want to welcome you to my presentation on analyzing your audience. A quote from Alexander Gregg says, "There are 3 things to aim at in public speaking. First, get into your subject. Then get your subject into yourself. And lastly, to get your subject into the heart of your audience." Analyzing your audience can help you with that third item, getting your subject into the heart of your audience. So that's what we're going to do today, audience analyzing. We're going to try and understand, what does it mean? What things do we need to consider in analyzing our audience? Are there any other factors? How do I gather that information? Do we have some ideas on how to do that? What does it mean? Well, the book definition of analyzing your audience tells us that we need to consider the 6 major sociological or demographic variables of our audience. My interpretation of that, I need to understand the differences and the similarities of my audience so that I can deliver the best speech possible. To begin with, what do we need to consider? There are 6 key items that we should be considering when we're preparing our speech. 1, what is the age group of our audience? We have to understand with the age group of our audience, there may be differences as to their ability to absorb information. Would it be possible that if you used visuals, that would help to bridge the gap? You also have to take into consideration gender. Would one gender look at your speech topic differently than the other? If so, how can you adjust your speech so that things might be more even between the genders? Be careful not to stereotype here, because there are males that have feminist qualities and there are females that have more masculine qualities. Also, affectional orientation. This is in relation to opposite sex or same-sex relationships. Is your topic going to be taken differently based on someone's affectional orientation? Certainly you want to keep that in mind when you are speaking to topics where that might come into play. Educational and intellectual levels. Educational and intellectual levels certainly will vary depending upon your audience. You may find that everyone is at one level, or you may have varying levels. What that means is you need to try and make sure that when you are conducting your speech, that you are talking to your audience in a way that is respectful, but make sure that you're not talking down to someone. A lack of a degree does not mean lack of intelligence. Religion. Religion goes across all forms of everything. It'll be very important for you to understand with the topic of your speech how different religious backgrounds might be affected based on what you say. It'll be important for you to make sure that you are not unintentionally, but that you are not hurting someone with a certain religious background just because you don't understand what that is. So make sure you consider that if you're giving a speech on a topic that may be considered differently depending on the religion. Finally, culture. Different cultures look at the way speakers present themselves in very different manners. So especially if you're going to be giving your speech in a country that is different from your own, or perhaps even in your own country, but from others that are coming here from a different country or have a different cultural background, that you certainly take that into consideration so that when you are trying to get your speech into the heart of your audience, you're not doing something that perhaps would make them take your speech in a different way than you had expected. So those are the 6 key items. Are there any other factors? Absolutely. You may need to think about job titles, income status, and relationship status. If you're giving a topic on happy marriages and everyone in your audience is divorced, that may not be the best way or the best topic. Or perhaps you need to approach the topic differently. How many people are going to be in your presentation? if I'm giving a speech to 5 or 10 people, maybe I can be a little bit more relaxed. If I'm giving a speech to hundreds of people, maybe I need to be a little bit more precise and rehearse my speech a bit more. With political beliefs, if I'm giving a speech to an audience that contains primarily Republicans and my speech is supporting Democratic views, maybe I want to consider what the best way would be to express those views. Does my audience, in looking at what I'm speaking about, do they have any special interests of their own that might reflect how they are going to take the topic of my speech in? Where's my speech located? Am I giving a speech in a conference room? Am I giving a speech in an auditorium? Am I going to be giving my speech in Central Park? Do I have all of the things that I need so that I can be heard by my audience as well? What's the reason for my speech? I need to make sure I understand the reason. And when is my speech going to take place? Is it going to take place in the morning? Is it going to take place in the afternoon? Is it going to take place Monday morning, Friday evening? A lot of those things can factor into the way that you would carry yourself or how you might go about creating your speech. Those are all things that we need to think about in addition to those other topics. So what is needed? Well, what's needed is how do we gather that information? In gathering our information, there are 4 basic ways to do that. 1, you can simply observe your audience. Maybe look at their appearance, look at their dress, look at their jewelry, but be careful not to stereotype. We want to make sure that we're looking to try and understand the status and some of the things about our audience before we give our speech. Another way, this is a way that I've used, collecting data. When I am preparing for a class that I'm going to give at a company, if I'm allowed to, I will go ahead and send out questionnaires to try and get experience levels that people might have on a certain software. I then take that information and I look at it, and it helps me to put together the best class possible so that I'm not spending hours on a topic that most of my audience or most of those students would already know. So I use that collecting of data to help my courses, just like we could use that in a speech, to better put out that information. Also, interviewing. When I'm conducting an instructor-led course, I typically have about 10 to 15 students. What I do then is spend time asking each one of those individuals questions and having them introduce themselves and tell me what they do and what they work on and why they decided to take the class. If I don't have an opportunity to do that, sometimes I'm giving speeches on software to a very large audience, and I don't have time to really know each member. What I do then is the person that has asked me to stand up and give the instruction, I ask them a little bit about the experience levels of those that are there, and then I try to create that instructional presentation so that it fits everyone as best I can. Finally, in our experiences, knowing what people are, knowing what people do, knowing how they react. A lot of times we can take those experiences that we've had and try to understand or figure out the attitudes, the beliefs, and the values that those in our audience might have, and conduct our speech or give our speech in a way that will go into the hearts of the audience as we need them to. I hope you learned a lot from the presentation today, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.